Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a story that, well, it hits differently depending on how you experience it. We're talking Cherry Blossoms After Winter. It's a huge BL manhwa, also a live-action K-drama, and we're going to unpack the whole journey of Seo Ho-bum and Jo Tae-sung. Childhood friends, then kind of estranged housemates. It's a lot. And that title, Cherry Blossoms After Winter, it really tells you what it's about, finding hope, finding love, the blossoms, but only after going through this really cold, tough time, this winter of grief and silence.
Exactly. And our mission today is to track that relationship, that growth. We're going from high school awkwardness through university, all the way to them getting married. What's fascinating here is how they shift from basically ignoring each other in the same house, all because of this childhood misunderstanding, right?
Yep.
To becoming this committed couple. We'll look at how Haibum gets his confidence back, how Taesung learns to channel that protective instinct into something healthy. And then, yeah, we definitely need to talk about why the original story got, well, controversial.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. High school. That's where the winter really sets in. Haibum's parents are gone, and he moves in with Taesung's mom, Yoon-seum.
Who is his mom's best friend, right? So there's history there.
Yeah, exactly. But the dynamic just freezes instantly because little Haibum overhears Taesung saying he doesn't want a brother, and Haibum takes it completely the wrong way. Thinks Taesung hates him being there.
And he carries that feeling of being a burden, like all the way through his teenage years.
Totally. He just sort of makes himself small, lives like a ghost in their house. He's this timid kid, convinced he has to stay quiet, almost invisible to earn his keep.
And that feeling that he's just a freeloader, that's the real conflict early on. It's not just about bullies at school. It's this internal thing Haibum's battling. The thing that finally starts to break that cycle isn't some big drama. It's just logistics, really. They end up in the same class in their last year of high school.
Suddenly they have to interact. No more hiding.
Right. And this kind of forces Taesung's hand. He's always been protective, watching from afar. But now he steps up. He starts pulling Haebum into his friend group with Youngie.
Yeah, Youngie's a good friend in this, supportive.
Definitely. And you see Haebum start to change almost immediately. With Taesung actually there, backing him up, he starts finding his voice, standing up for himself a bit. And that whole arc, the high school part, it wraps up really nicely. They finally talk about everything, all those years of silence, confess their feelings, graduate as a couple. The ice is finally breaking.
Okay, so winter's over, spring is maybe starting, they graduate, move into an apartment together for university. Seems like smooth sailing ahead, right?
You'd think so, but those deep-seated issues, especially Haebum's insecurity, they don't just vanish.
So even though they're together, he still feels like he has to justify himself.
Pretty much. Instead of feeling like a financial burden to Yoon-sun, now it's almost like he feels he needs to prove he's worthy of Taesung, worthy of this happiness. So he just throws himself into work.
Overachieving at uni, part-time jobs, everything.
Everything. Just trying to prove his value, almost like he's trying to repay the universe or Insign or Taesung for everything.
And I bet that creates its own problems.
Oh, absolutely. First big one. They have to hide their relationship. That creates anxiety for both of them. Second, Haebum's working so hard. He's successful. He gets noticed by other people, including girls who are interested.
Uh-oh. So Taesung sees this.
And Taesung, who, remember, spent years basically watching Haebum from a distance, terrified of losing him again, he starts getting really insecure, jealous, a little possessive even.
Okay, so internal pressures, relationship pressures. What about outside stuff? Does university life bring new threats?
It does, and this is where the tone starts to shift a bit. It's not just classroom drama anymore. Haebum gets targeted by this envious upperclassman.
And like serious targeting, not just teasing.
Yeah, more serious. This guy tries to sabotage Haebum's grades, spreads nasty rumors. It feels darker, more dangerous than the high school stuff. There's real peril there for Haebum's future.
Wow, okay. So it escalates quite a bit from misunderstandings to actual sabotage.
It really does. And that escalation, driven by the need for higher stakes, I guess, leads them right into season 4 and the ultimate test.
Which is discovery.
Yep. After dealing with the bully, the one person they were most afraid of finding out about the relationship does. Taesung's mother, Yoon-seum.
Oh, man. For Haebum, that must have been his absolute worst nightmare realized. The woman who took him in finds out he's dating her son after he ran away to avoid being a burden.
Exactly. You'd expect him to crumble, right? Based on the early seasons.
Why?
But this is where we see how much he's actually grown. Instead of running or hiding, Haebum stands his ground. He confronts Yoon-seum directly.
Really? He takes the lead.
He does. He tells her how much he loves Taesung, that he's committed, that he's not going anywhere. It's this powerful moment where he claims his place, asserts his choice. It's the payoff for his whole insecurity arc.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And how does Yunsin react?
Well, she's shocked at first, obviously. But ultimately, she sees how happy they make each other, how much they need each other, and she gives them her blessing.
So that final barrier, that guilt and fear Haebom carried about Yunsian, it finally falls.
It does. And it's the validation they both needed. It also resolves Taesung's lingering fear of Haebom leaving him. Haebom's assertiveness reassures him completely.
Which leads to?
A really beautiful role reversal.
Right.
With Taesung's fear gone and Haebom's confidence solid, it's Haebom who proposes marriage.
Wow. Full circle.
Exactly. And the story ends with a time jump. They're married, settled, successful, living out that promise of the cherry blossoms after the long winter.
Okay, that sounds like a really satisfying conclusion.
Ah.
Earned happiness, character growth. So why the controversy?
Yeah.
You mentioned the source material, the manhwa became divisive. Here's where it gets complicated, right?
Yeah, this is where things get messy. While that ending we just described is satisfying, the journey in the original manhwa, especially in the later parts beyond what the K-drama covers, it took some turns that many readers found problematic.
Problematic how?
Well, the biggest issue for a lot of people was a really jarring shift in tone. The story starts out as this fairly wholesome, sweet, maybe a bit angsty, but ultimately heartfelt romance. Fluffy, even.
Right, the high school stuff.
Yeah. But later on, it introduces much darker, more explicit themes, and that shift felt really abrupt and for some kind of out of place with the story they'd initially signed up for.
And did that affect the characters too? Or just the plot?
Oh, it definitely affected the characters, and this was the core of the criticism, especially regarding Taesung.
Okay, what happened with Taesung? He starts out as the protector, right?
He does. Fiercely protective. But in some of the later intimate scenes in the manhwa, his behavior becomes possessive. More worryingly, there were instances that readers flagged as dubious consent or dubcon.
Dubcon. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. It refers to situations where consent is questionable or ignored. In the manhwa, there were scenes where Haebom would explicitly say something like, "it hurts," or "I don't want to," and Taesung would essentially override him by dismissing his words, saying things like, "I know you actually like it," or suggesting Haebom was just being shy or playing hard to get, even when Haebom was clearly expressing discomfort or pain.
Whoa. Okay, that's not just possessive. That's actively ignoring boundaries. That's a huge departure from the protective figure he was earlier.
It's a massive departure, and for many readers, it felt like a complete betrayal of his character. How could the guy who stood up to bullies and defended Haebom publicly then disregard his explicit wishes in private? That perceived hypocrisy was a major breaking point.
I can see why that would be incredibly jarring and upsetting for readers who loved the initial dynamic.
Definitely. And it wasn't just that. There were other controversial elements, like some side stories in the epilogue chapters that involved violence, and even a sexual assault storyline with minor characters. Many felt these were gratuitous, poorly handled, and added nothing meaningful to the main couple's story.
So beyond the character issues and the dark themes, were there other criticisms, like about the overall plot?
Yeah, some critics felt that once the main relationship hurdles were cleared, like Yoonsin's acceptance, the plot became a bit thin. Lots of domestic scenes, relationship fluff, without much external conflict driving things forward.
And the side characters, like those bullies.
Often felt underdeveloped, like Kim Jun-sung or Lee Sang-won, the university bully. They seemed to exist solely to push Haebom and Taesung together or create temporary drama, rather than being fully fleshed out characters themselves.
Okay, so the manhwa has this whole complex and for many problematic later section, which brings us to the K-drama adaptation. Why was this reception so different? So much more positive generally.
Right, it's a really interesting contrast, and the answer basically comes down to two things. Tight pacing, and crucially, what they chose to leave out.
So pacing first. The K-drama is much shorter, right?
Well, it's shorter, only 8 episodes, so it has to be focused. And it concentrates almost entirely on the early parts of the story, the high school years and the very beginning of university, basically the winter and the first blossoms.
The parts that were generally less controversial in the manhwa.
Exactly. And by stopping there, the drama adaptation completely avoided all the difficult stuff from the later manhwa arcs.
Ah, so no tonal shift,
Nope.
no dubcon scenes,
Entirely gone.
no weirdly dark side stories?
Not included. They essentially took the most beloved, wholesome parts of the source material and presented just that.
That makes a lot of sense. It means they could keep Taesung consistent. He stays the devoted, protective partner throughout the drama.
Precisely. No character regression, no hypocrisy. He remains the character that readers initially fell in love with, which understandably appealed much more to a broad K-drama audience looking for a heartwarming, positive queer romance.
So the drama delivers a streamlined, feel-good version.
Pretty much. It's a smart adaptation choice, focusing on the core emotional journey and positive representation. So the recommendation usually goes like this.
Uh,
If you want a focused, consistently sweet and wholesome romance, watch the K-drama. But if you want the entire story, the full picture, including the messy parts, the controversial character shifts, the darker themes, the good, the bad, and the uncomfortable, then you'd need to read the manhwa. You get the whole unfiltered journey that way.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We followed Haebom's journey from this incredibly timid kid, always feeling like he owed everyone, to someone who stands up, claims his love, even proposes. It's a powerful arc.
It really is. And that central theme, finding your family, choosing it, blossoming after hardship, that resonates in both versions.
But the difference in how they tell the later parts of the story is stark.
Very. And it brings up a really interesting question, especially when we think about adapting queer stories for wider audiences. The K-drama's success came partly from, well, sanitizing the original work, removing the problematic elements to deliver a clean, positive message.
So the final thought for you, the listener, is maybe about that choice. When adapting these beloved, but sometimes complex or flawed original stories, what's the priority? Is it better to show the whole picture, warts and all, reflecting the original creator's sometimes controversial vision?
Or is there more value, perhaps, in streamlining, in editing out the difficult parts to ensure the adaptation delivers a consistently positive, affirming representation, making it more accessible and palatable for a mainstream audience? Something to think about as you maybe check out both versions of Cherry Blossoms After Winter.